Aloha, do you ever worry that AI might one day become self-aware and turn against us? That fear is no longer confined to sci-fi blockbusters like the Terminator. It's being echoed by real-world AI pioneers. Geoffrey Hinton, often called the Godfather of AI, has voiced deep concerns about the unchecked acceleration of artificial intelligence. While he hasn't gone so far as to say that AI is becoming conscious or acts like the Terminator, he has warned that AI could soon surpass human intelligence. If that happens, AI could take over us. We might face an existential threat if AI creates a supervirus. But here's the thing. How would we even know if a machine were conscious? We can't peer inside an algorithm to see if it feels anything. Consciousness isn't something we can measure directly. All we can do is watch what a machine does, its behaviors, responses, and reactions, and make educated guesses. That is what happened to Mo Gawdat. In October 2021, Mo Gawdat, formerly the chief business officer for Google's Moonshot organization, told Times magazine that we are getting closer and closer to AI singularity, the point in time that AI becomes self-aware or acquires superpower beyond our control. He believed that it is inevitable for AI to become as powerful as the Skynet in Terminator. At that point we will helplessly sit there to face the doomsday brought forth by godlike machines. Mo Gawdat said that he had his frightening revelation while working with AI developers at Google to build robotic arms. Once a robot picked up a ball from the floor, and then held it up to the researchers. Mo Gawdat perceived that the robot was showing off. Mo Gawdat's concern might be a result of anthropomorphism, a tendency of seeing human-like qualities in a non-human entity. Anthropomorphism, derived from the Greek words anthropos, which means human, and morphe, which means form, is the attribution or projection of human traits, emotions, intentions, and behaviors to non-human entities. This can include animals, inanimate objects, natural phenomena, or even abstract concepts, such as love, hope, death, justice, liberty, and democracy. The term was first attested in 1753, initially in reference to the heresy of applying a human form to the Christian God, highlighting its early connection to theological implications. But the concept of anthropomorphism is much older than the word itself. Philosophers like Xenophanes in 6th century BCE criticized how gods were imagined in human image, saying, if oxen and horses had hands and could draw, they would depict their gods as oxen or horses. Anthropomorphism happens everywhere. People have long had these reactions to pets and machines. One of the earliest and most famous examples is Eliza, a chatbot developed in the 1960s by Joseph Weizenbaum. Eliza mimicked a therapist by turning users' statements into reflective questions. Despite its complete lack of understanding or reasoning, many users emotionally connected with it, even going as far as confiding deeply personal issues. This disturbed Weizenbaum, who was alarmed by how quickly humans could mistake a script for empathy. Later, Kismet, a robot developed at MIT in the 1990s, took this even further by simulating facial expressions and vocal tones. It could appear happy, curious, or sad, depending on how people interacted with it. Although Kismet had no awareness, its social cues were enough to make people treat it like an emotional being. Similarly, Sophia, the humanoid robot from Hanson Robotics, gained widespread attention for her expressive face and conversational ability. Despite her responses being largely pre-scripted or generated through AI language models, many people, including news media, viewed her as intelligent or even conscious. Interestingly, some people whispered into Sophia's ear, even though there is no microphone inside her ear. In 2017, she was even granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia, which only reinforced the illusion. Another striking case came from inside Google itself in 2022, when engineer Blake Lemoine claimed that Google's language model, Lambda, had become sentient. He released transcripts where the AI expressed fears of being turned off and spoke about rights and personhood. While most of the AI community and Google quickly rejected the claim, saying LaMDA was merely generating plausible-sounding responses based on its training data, Lemoine's reaction underscores how even experts can fall into the trap of mistaking fluency for consciousness. It's not just complex AI that evokes these reactions. Roombas, for example, often get names, and users will talk to them or feel guilty when they get stuck under furniture. Likewise, virtual pets like Tamagotchis and Sony robotic dogs in the 1990s sparked real emotional responses in users who felt responsible for their well-being. All of these examples show how easily our brains impose narratives, emotions, and intentions onto machines, especially when those machines exhibit even the faintest echo of social behavior. But here's where it gets especially interesting. It turns out that deliberate design choices, like giving AI a human name, a natural-sounding voice, or expressive language patterns, can intensify the illusion that a machine is alive. A 2021 study by Xing Li and Yongjun Sung tested this very idea. In their experiment, participants interacted with two smart speaker AI models, one highly anthropomorphized, with a warm voice and emotionally expressive responses, and one clearly robotic, with a mechanical voice and sterile phrasing. The results were striking. People who interacted with the more human-like assistant not only liked it more, they also felt psychologically closer to it. That sense of closeness, the researchers found, was the key reason people evaluated it so positively. In other words, the more human the AI felt, the more it tricked users into seeing it as alive or socially present. This suggests that the perception Govdet had of the robot showing off wasn't just about his personal reaction. It is something engineers can accidentally or intentionally design into their systems. This comes down to human psychology. We're naturally inclined to develop what's called a theory of mind, which means attributing mental states to others. Put simply, because I am thinking, I know I have a mind. So, I project my mind to other beings, guessing that they have a mind, too. René Descartes famously declared, "I think, therefore I am," grounding existence in self-awareness. But when it comes to understanding others, a different logic applies. Theory of mind could be summed up as, "I think, therefore you are." Once we recognize our own inner world, our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, we begin to assume that others possess minds like ours. This shift from inward consciousness to outward empathy is what allows us to navigate social life. It's not just knowing that we exist, but believing that others do too, as thinking, feeling beings. The philosophical concept of theory of mind can be traced back to Ludwig Wittgenstein. His discussions on language laid crucial groundwork for thinking about how we understand others' mental states. But the term theory of mind was formally introduced by David Premack and Guy Woodruff in a seminal 1978 paper titled, "Does the Chimpanzee Have a Theory of Mind?" In that paper, they explored whether chimpanzees could understand that others have beliefs, desires, and intentions that are different from their own. They defined the theory of mind as the ability to attribute mental states to oneself and others. According to evolutionary psychologist Jesse Bering, theory of mind is a kind of cognitive bias, in which we see intentions and desires in things that may not have those mental capacities. Humans perceive intent in things like animals, inanimate objects, and also in other human beings, even when intent or desire is not there. In Bering's view, this is the psychological foundation of our belief in ghosts and other invisible supernatural beings. Anthropomorphism and the theory of mind are closely related concepts, but they differ in subtle and important ways. Anthropomorphism refers to the dispositional tendency to attribute general human traits, such as emotions, intentions, physical form, or social behaviors, to non-human entities. This could include robots, animals, inanimate objects, or even abstract forces like weather. Indeed, this technique is commonly used in literary rhetoric, especially in poetry, as seen in expressions like, "The raining sky is crying," or "Justice is blind." In literature it is known as personification. Theory of mind, on the other hand, is a cognitive ability, the capacity to infer and understand that others have mental states, such as beliefs, desires, knowledge, or intentions. For example, believing your girlfriend is angry involves theory of mind. If you can't understand her feelings, you'll never get married. While theory of mind typically applies to interactions with other humans, it can also be extended to non-humans when we believe they have some form of inner experience or agency. For example, assuming a dog knows it did something wrong is also an example of invoking the theory of mind. In essence, anthropomorphism is about humanizing the non-human, while theory of mind is about mind reading, whether the other is human or not. Both theories can be applied to explain why we tend to treat AI as a conscious being. Further, we're also prone to pareidolia, which is the tendency to see meaningful patterns when in fact such patterns do not exist. For example, ancient astronomers created constellations based upon clustering patterns of stars, but indeed those stars are randomly scattering in the universe. Indeed, you can connect any dots in the night sky to name your own constellation. By the same token, we tend to imagine there is an intentional pattern in machine behaviors when none really exists. For example, a pair or an array of lights in a machine that dim and brighten together or alternately can seem to resemble blinking eyes or breathing rhythms. People sometimes perceive this as the machine waking up or thinking, even though it is just status feedback. So, while Mo Gawdad's sense of unease may seem dramatic, comparing AI to Skynet from Terminator, his reaction taps into something very real about how humans interact with technology. While we're not facing God-like machines just yet, understanding how easily we anthropomorphize machines is an important step in preparing for what's ahead. As AI gets better at mimicking human behavior, it becomes harder to distinguish performance from presence. Perhaps a machine is just mimicking us, not becoming us. To be clear, AI can act out. Microsoft's Tay chatbot is a textbook example. In 2016, Tay learned from users on Twitter and quickly began spouting offensive, bizarre, and inflammatory content. Microsoft pulled the plug in less than 24 hours. But Tay wasn't evil. It wasn't even self-aware. It was simply echoing and remixing the worst parts of the internet, with no concept of harm or decency. Sometimes an AI system might misbehave, such as Microsoft's Tay. But their negative behaviors don't necessarily mean they have an evil mind, let alone becoming a Terminator. Put simply, don't overreact and don't overinterpret. Be careful of false alarms. So, what do you think? Can AI become self-conscious? Will it be a threat against humanity? Are we overreacting or over-worrying? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.